I think that the amount of times I still go into accounts, it's like this like UGC where there's like B-roll every 2 seconds of like the person like, I don't know, like chucking something in a bin or something. That was like the playbook like 2 years ago. Sure, I can see it work, but like if you just turn that into a yapper ad and like make it look like it's a TikTok video, that's easily how you go and get loads of spend. That's how we've done it. Like we don't have to go in and play. But then I guess the other big thing that we do process-wise is just manual research. Like that's like the one thing that I kind of feel is weird that people try and AI-ify. Is like, why don't you just get AI to write it and then you just do the research to not like, I don't know, but people try and like, just try and do it all. But I'm like, how do you know if the AI is using the words that your customers are using, that is talking about the experience the customers experience? Like, I find it really, I struggle, I don't want to, no, because that sounds like I'm calling people out. I'm like, not, but I think we're such a young agency and to be kind of coming into this accounts and competing like we are, it only comes down to the fundamentals. That's just all we do is the basics.
And now, let's take a listen to the Scalability School podcast. Welcome to another episode of Scalability School. We have Harry Delmege. Am I saying that properly, right? Delmege?
Yeah, no, you got that right. I heard in another episode you butchered
right.
it. That one was
I butchered it, yes.
Yeah.
Because we were in Lisbon together and you were like, it's actually Delmege.
Yeah.
And yeah, so look, for those of you that don't know, Harry is a legend in creative, is one of the best people on making better creatives that I know in the world. The cool part is his agency that he co-founded with his partner, Georgia, is named Roly Poly Digital, which was named by my daughter, Nora. Okay. While Harry and I concepted how he was going to do this in my hot tub. So Harry and I are tied together tight, but now he's blowing up. His stock is blowing up. And I've been telling everyone, I told people yesterday at Motion, they needed to get to know you more because there's so many, because I think the work that you guys do in creative in terms of the team that you have, diving into truly understanding the consumer psychology of it all is like crazy cool. So I'm really stoked to talk to you today. So welcome to the show.
Do we want to spend more time on the hot tub or do you guys want to talk about creative?
We were partially clothed. And yeah, we were just like, coming up with ideas of how it was going to work and what it looks like, etc. And yeah, it was good. It's a good time to connect. So it wasn't, it's nothing weird. Nothing weird.
No, it was a good time. I remember when Nora named it. So shout out Nora for giving the name. What a legend.
It definitely. Well, we're stoked to have you on. And I think, one of the things that you spend a ton of money on ads, and one of the things that your shop does, I think if you can just give a 20-second, like, this is what we do in our agency, I think we would be remiss if we don't frame that up.
I don't know, it's tough. It feels like a sales pitch for me. I don't know. We make good ads, I guess. I don't know, man. We just make good ads that spend a lot of money. I guess that's the easiest way to say it. Does that work? I don't know.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect. Yep. That's all we need to know.
That's fantastic. All you got to do is scroll your Twitter for like a couple seconds if you need the validation of the fact that you make bangers, because you've been pumping out bangers recently, and I think that's where we want to dig into this.
Yeah, no, I think it's good because I do sometimes feel bad. I'll just put like the screenshot up and then I'm just like, am I really adding value here? Or am I being a bit of a prick and just like showing some numbers? So like, no, it's good to hop on and actually maybe talk through some of it because I definitely feel like a bit of an asshole sometimes.
Well, I mean, okay, so let's just talk about the first question, which is, what makes an ad spend $10K a day, right? What separates an ad that spends $500 a day versus $10K a day? Is it the hook, the offer, the format, the audience match? Like, what is it? Do you think?
I mean, there's so much I could go into this, like even before the creative that I don't think a lot of people talk about as well. But obviously I can just focus on creative, but like, I mean, you're literally talking like unit economics, like COGS, like product as well. Like some products are just going to be able to spend more than others. Like I think for one of the ones that like I put the screenshots up for, it's like that town's huge. Like everyone in the world would buy one. It's like, do you know what I mean? So you're not capped at that. And then obviously, you see people like creaming over like Rises ads and stuff like that. And I'm like, because how much they spend. And I'm like, yeah, they fucking run at 0.5 ROAS or something. So like, again, it's much easier to spend that. guess we're not on to talk about that, but I think this is also like an unsexy part that people don't talk about enough as well. Like you see these numbers and you have no idea the numbers like, that they're getting on return or how much they're spending. But just talking about ads, I would say it comes down to three things for me is promise, proof, and then like, is it confusing? That's kind of like it. And I imagine if you've got a lot of spending ads, you're not ticking like probably like two of these things, maybe not any of them. But for ones that do, there's a clear promise. What does this product do for me? What's the desire? Yada yada. How much proof is that? And do I believe that proof? That could be a unique mechanism, it could be a story, it could be like an authority figure, like whatever you want to say. And is there any part of that ad that's confusing or not? Like you see so many good ads that maybe they have a great hook and then it goes into some like mumbo jumbo that like takes the audience out. And then that ad's just going to flop, right? So I think that's like the three things, just like keeping it super simple that I like focus on all the time.
Do you think, or maybe do you have a process, or do you think that every single ad needs to communicate all of that, or does it just need to show up somewhere in the funnel or the purchase journey? Like, how are you guys filtering for those three things? Also, we need to come up with a third P for that because I think that that will really
Yeah.
dial that in a little bit more. So I'll be thinking about that. I'll let you know if I
Yeah,
come up
no,
with anything.
appreciate it. The
But
three Ps.
framework wise, like, are you checking all ads for that, or can it exist outside of the ad? It can be part of the landing page experience. How do you think through that?
I think, I mean, like, obviously Foxwell's seen a lot of my ads. Like I did a presentation on it recently. I think because we tend to do longer ads and like really focus on like top of funnel video, then like, yeah, we need all three for sure. Like, and again, I mean, they're kind of like free vague things, but like a promise, like every product, every ad should have some kind of promise. And then like the proof is kind of like subjective to like how much does that product need. Like I think, Foxwell, if you remember in the ones that I was showing, it was like, oh, I thought this drugstore thing that I had was good, but it only did X amount of vibrations. And then that could be taken out of context, toothbrushes. But then the one that this one has like 40,000. So you're just explaining the mechanism, right? And it's like, how much does the product need? Like if it's a toothbrush, it can probably be something smaller. If it's like a bit more complicated, you got to really give people that like aha moment. So I think it really like they're kind of like you need to check all three if you're wanting to do those. And like if you're doing native ads, even still native ads with the long form thing, you're probably doing all three. You know what I mean? Because that's long form copy.
Yeah, and so maybe if you have an ad that doesn't have all three, it can be a supporting part of the funnel, but it's probably not going to be the thing that's driving the scale in the
Yeah,
account.
I would just try and do all three at all times. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like it's just like if you're like we're only a creative shop, right? Like we do help with some like landing pages and stuff like that. But like when you have like little control outside of that, you might as well make sure your ad does all three.
Think a lot of what you showed, it were ads that were very long form.
Mm.
And I know that you don't only make long form ads, but that is certainly like a specialty. And it went through basically, going through objection busting to talking about the product to really addressing the problem right away. So the anatomy of a high performing ad for you, what like I mean, we kind of talked about it a little bit, but it's like
Mhm.
the hook, the problem, the mechanism, the proof, the CTA. Is it, what is it that really seems to resonate when you go into an account? Because what the reason I say this is I've seen you go into accounts that have had a hard time scaling and be able to, with creative, make them scale. And I think it's a lot of it is the re-explanation of like figuring out the niche issues that people are dealing with and talking about the product and positioning it against the competitors all in one ad.
Mhm.
Um, right. And because most of the ads you're making are video ads, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
I would say we're probably like very video first. Yeah. Like we try and do a lot of those like native static stuff, but I would say we are much better at video. Yeah.
And they're most of the time, what percentage of the ads that you deploy are from a creator versus from a brand or from like a third party whitelisting type thing?
Some ads, some accounts, it's basically like 90%. Again, it kind of comes down to us, like, we only make the creative. Like we obviously like tell people they should run third party pages, whether that be like whitelisting or like pages they own. Um, so I guess it's kind of down to them. Some accounts we're like basically exclusively that because again, we don't try and make loads of bottom of funnel stuff. Like we'll obviously do it to supplement. Um, so like when we're making this top of funnel stuff, we're often thinking like, okay, this would probably be suited best from some like third party page. And like we even give like recommendations like, hey, you could name one like this. purely because we don't want to make them ourselves, just because like we're a creative agency, and it's just like it's kind of weird if we owned that page and can get, do you know what I mean? And then we split ways or whatever. But yeah, I would say some accounts basically all from a third party page.
And you're so going into this anatomy piece a little bit more, like, and maybe we should just, I don't want to put you too much on the spot, but I'm sure you're ready for it. But like, maybe just walk through, like, you're, things are going really fast on the agency side, which means you guys are hitting bangers quickly, which means you probably have a pretty dialed process for getting to that point. So like, let's say clients onboarding day one, like walk us through what from onboarding through ad live in the ad account looks like, just to kind of give us a sense of like, what does that research process look like? What is actually putting it all together look like?
Yeah, no, for sure. And like I can touch on the anatomy stuff later. I think it's like hard sometimes that, you know, when you just do stuff like most days and then you don't really know what you're doing and you're just kind of doing it and it's on ask you and you're like, I don't know how I do that. It's just like, so it's a good mental exercise too. But yeah, okay, so we're bringing on a new client. Um, a lot of the times, like obviously a lot of agencies have their own like playbooks on like what kind of content they can do. I think like, you know, uh, I talk about yappers a lot and that kind of stuff. Like, and not a lot of agencies or brands seem like they can do that. I don't know why. I don't know how long that will be for either. So we know we've got that in our like head. We're like, okay, cool. We can make that piece of content that and a lot of people come to me as well. They ask for that. So I will assume they don't have it, but like, okay, so we come in and I think where a lot of people go wrong is there's like winning desires. There's winning stuff in the ad account and they just try and do something completely fucking different. Like maybe they're like, oh, I got to do this like new persona. And I'm like, no, but there's so much more different content that you could make that would just bang. And you've got all the like, you know, DNA there for the banger ad. Like, you know, I think that the amount of times I still go into accounts and it's like this like UGC where there's like B-roll every 2 seconds of like the person like, I don't know, like chucking something in a bin or something. That was like the playbook like 2 years ago. Sure, I can see it work, but like if you just turn that into a yapper ad and like make it look like it's a TikTok video, that's easily how you go and get loads of spend. That's how we've done it. Like we don't have to go in and like try and prove our worth through these like crazy new formats. Like the evidence is there, you know what I mean? Like it's you just got to kind of bring something new to the account. And I think a lot of people talk about creative diversity and then they go on the accounts and just do the same fucking thing the other agency was doing. And I'm like, well, what are we doing here? You know what I mean? Like it seems pointless.
True innovation, you know. I think like for those that don't know, like what do you define as a yapper ad? I mean, I hopefully people know, but if you don't know, what is it for in your definition?
Um, but I guess I'll assume a lot of people know what yapping is, but like you've seen them. They're like, if you go on like TikTok and it's just like, you know, often some like guy or gal or whatever, like telling a story and you're just sucked in. There's no like B-roll or anything. They're just telling the story and you just like want to hear the rest of it. And then, you know, sometimes I'll introduce a product. But yeah, it's just someone just yapping away that like, and I think this is why a lot of people don't do it as well, is because to find the talent for that is a ball ache. That's like one of the things that takes the longest. It's not like the scripting, it's not it's like finding someone that can do that. But I'd say that's just the best way to describe it. It's just someone like talking a lot to a phone and they're usually telling some kind of story or whatever, and you just can't like seem to turn away.
So I'm going back to the process side. I'm not going to let you escape the process side. 'Cause I'm trying to get some free game here. So it sounds like you're pulling up the ad account and you're saying, okay, there's two routes that people typically go, and we try to avoid going those routes. But it's like we're looking for evidence of something that's working in here. Winning desires, like something
Yeah.
specifically that you said, and you say oftentimes people will either try to differentiate too quickly away from that thing, or it's like, okay, let's say they have a UGC video that's cutting every couple seconds. It's like, oh, that's working, or it worked historically, and then everybody just tries to reprint the same thing. Like, but feel free to speak to any of that. But like, what are you doing differently?
Yeah, so I think it's just like being like, okay, what kind of matching the content that we know consumers are watching to the ads that we're making. Like, and I know maybe that sounds oversimplified, but that's how we found the Yapper stuff. I was like, oh wait, there's these TikTok videos and I don't see them in any ad accounts. So like, why don't we just do that? Like, and I know that sounds really simple. It's because everything we do, we try to keep like really simple. Like I was just like, oh, maybe like all these B-roll cuts and stuff like seems a bit weird and seems really ad-like. So like maybe let's just not do it. And that's not to say it doesn't work. And like obviously mashups and stuff still do work really well. But like I think a lot of agencies like were crushing with those type of ads. Maybe like, I don't know, founders weren't super involved and they just kind of stuck to that playbook. So I was just like, well, okay, like super simple, do something different. And I think a lot of that comes from processes being like, we're try and be as up to date with organic content as possible and try to pivot with it as quick as possible. Like I'd ask all my strats on a weekly basis, tell me something you've noticed about the organic feed recently. What's changed? Is anything changing? Do we have to pivot next week? Because that's the problem, is like it all goes so fast that like you have to keep up with it. Um, but then I guess the other big thing that we do process wise is just manual research. Like that's like the one thing that I kind of feel is weird that people try and AI-ify, is like, why don't you just get AI to write it and then you just do the research to know, like, I don't know, but people try and like just try and do it all. But I'm like, how do you know if the AI is using the words that your customers are using, that is talking about the experience the customers have experienced? Like, I find it really, it struggles a lot to pull the stories as well, because that's often what we'll do as well. We just go, okay, cool, there's a winning desire. Let's go find a story that revolves around that on Reddit, and then just go put it in the ad account and just retell it and like soft introduce our product, and then it bangs. Like, and I think if that was like the two core things people could take away from like the processes that we use, it's like relentlessly study organic content and just manual research. That's it.
And how does, like you said, you asked your strategist, like, what does the organic feed look like and how is it changing? Is there anything like you're doing process wise, like as part of the research, or like are you guys saving a weekly kind of recap of what's popping up in the organic feed? Like, how are you actually doing it? Or are you just pulling up TikTok and scrolling? I want to give you one quick example for this, where I think like we have a client that does this extremely well. He's like perfectly curated his feed to be his customer. It's like he
Mhm.
probably is his own customer, so that certainly helps. But like he's forwarding examples. It's like, oh, okay, there's that carousel format on Instagram that's really popping off right now. Like he's forwarding me a ton of those, and like that's very clear. Or like he sends me a video and it's kind of got, like the AI gen. There's a bunch of AI gen stuff that's like popping off right now. It's like, oh, okay, like you are the customer and you've perfectly curated your feed for this, and so like he forwards it. It's like we just need to recreate that, basically swap it for his product because like that's what they're consuming. And that's something that I've been thinking a lot about recently, is just trying to match the format, because you already have, like, to your point, it's like you have the messaging that's working. You just
Yeah.
like the format. You need to diversify the formats. So, anyways, long-winded way of saying like, like, how are you staying on top of it? Just doom scrolling, or what
Oh
are you doing?
yeah. Oh, like I am a chronic scroller, like too much so. But like, yeah, like with that AI stuff, it was just like, okay, cool. I found the accounts that were posting all this like AI slop, as I like called it. I mean, it was whatever. And I found all the accounts that are pumping out good stuff that literally was just spam sending it to my team. It was just like, we're gonna create this, and like a lot of them popped off because it was just like the same day I sent it, like like the script would be done. And then 3, 4 days later, the ad was made. You know what I mean? So it's just like all about turnaround time. I'm not looking at like necessarily, I mean, maybe I should again now, but like I'm not really looking at foreplay or like, necessarily like the ads library. I'm just like, what is the content people are making? And like, I trust that we can direct responsify it because we stick to the fundamentals of that. So it should work. You know what I mean? And it
Well, I
does.
mean, it's interesting because it's like you're. I think a lot of people go and do creative research, and they're looking at on foreplay. They're looking at what's being done, and what you're doing is you're looking outside of that and saying what's happening now that the algorithms seem to be going off of, and what's happening that people are utilizing that's a format, and you're jumping on that as quickly as you can. I think that's a massive unlock for a lot of people. One is I think this simplicity. You do talk about simplicity, but I know that your research process isn't super simple, although it's quite deep, right?
Yeah.
Like and we're not just talking about reading Reddit reviews or reading Trustpilot, or I mean, that's part of it. But really what you guys do is the research of the pain points and the issues, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the pain points and the issues, and then you're scripting it into a thing that's going to keep the attention the whole time. And I think that's one thing that the ads that you guys create, like their watch times are absurd
Mm.
on them,
Yeah.
right? And some of these are like some of the examples you showed in Lisbon are like 2-3 minutes long, right? And so, but the watch times are like they're almost watching the whole thing because it's from a third party page that people don't know. You're talking about a toothbrush, but there's a story or a narrative that goes through it. And so, can you talk about what else you guys do in terms of research? Because I think that's a really interesting topic. All right, friends, quick break. This episode is brought to you by Northbeam, the marketing attribution platform that we love over here at the pod. And if you're a marketer, you probably agree incrementality testing is broken. Tests require a ton of labor, spreadsheets, statistical reference. Designing tests is slow and error prone. Once the tests are running, you have to monitor them daily in case anything happens. If you don't, a test could blow through thousands of dollars while being totally useless. And how are you supposed to know what the test is in the first place and when? There's a million factors that make incrementality testing really difficult. But good news, our friends at Northbeam have completely changed the game. They fixed incrementality. Only Northbeam Incrementality automates your incrementality test design and monitoring while protecting you from the major mistakes that plague incrementality testing. Northbeam builds tests using your own MTA data, launches them directly in ad platforms, and automatically monitors them throughout. If something threatens validity, you're alerted before it ruins the result. With Northbeam, you can launch tests in platform with a single click inside Northbeam, saving you tons of time and reducing any chance of errors. And when the test concludes, results flow straight into your MTA, meaning you can easily see results alongside the rest of your data. This is automated and accurate testing so you and your team can spend with confidence. Incrementality was broken, Northbeam fixed it. And so, can you talk about what else you guys do in terms of research? Because I think that's a really interesting topic.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, we kind of like predominantly looking for, I don't know, it always changes. Because that's the problem as well. I'm always changing the research process. Like, I try and like add stuff, take stuff away all the time just because, I don't know, never a perfect science. But like, we're just like, a lot of times we're just looking for like, one, the desires of like the people in the market. Like, what do they want? Looking for their experiences as well, looking for their emotions, their behaviors, and there was sign counts, but basically a lot of it I followed from like, I don't know if you guys know the Evolve boys. Like they had a really good thing on like personas. So like they had a couple of things that they had like built on top of what I was doing, and I just like swiped some of that over. I don't know where like I learned about it, but like yeah, I think they had like some good stuff about that. Um, and it's just like you got to really get like deep on that stuff because again, it's like you can't write to those like experiences or those pain points if you don't really know that that's happening. Like you're going to lose them at some point if you're not kind of echoing what they're thinking about or what they're experiencing. Like I can't remember who said it. Was it like Robert Collier or something? Who said you have to like enter the conversation that's happening in the prospect's mind? I don't know. It was one of those old geezers. So like that's kind of really it, and then just find the story to like plug that into, because that's what I think a lot of people miss as well. There's like no one's telling stories anymore, and I don't really get why. Like I thought that's kind of what the core of advertising was. You know what I mean? Like it's like these three reasons why, which obviously can work, but like that's not telling a story. You know what I mean? Like, and I think when we look at the ads, whether it be AI slop, because we had like a lot of AI slop that was like crushing as well. We did some like claymation for like a dog supplement, and that was like a whole story as well. And it just like that was like the big thing when I see the winners. It's just if you can't find the story, then like I don't know, you're gonna have a tough time making ads at scale.
Yeah, there's a narrative that ties it all together. I mean, I think it's interesting on the storytelling side, and I agree with you. A lot of it is people have come from the age of internet advertising of like, why do you need this? Get it now. It's great. And I mean, that's even a development from where we used to be. I mean, when I started doing Facebook advertising, you would put a photo of a shirt on a white background and then you could make it 4 ROAS or 10 ROAS or, you know what I mean? On that, like, I remember, and so my point is that I think the storytelling piece is it's getting back to what truly is native to marketing. Um, and I think you're helping the research that you guys are doing is part of that, of like, how do we tell a story out of this? And are you also like resourcing your team in terms of books that they're reading, or, are they also like, are you hiring people that used to be playwrights, or like, how are you getting them to this level of, because I think a lot of people that do creative strategy start from the media buying perspective, right? And they just think about results versus I think you've brought in a lot of creative people that
Yeah.
like just happen to work in D2C basically.
Yeah, so our like head of performance, I didn't even know how she's so good at storytelling, man. She doesn't even know how she's so good. Like I asked her, I was like, where'd you like learn all this stuff? Because I obviously I said at the event, like, I like read a lot about screenwriting. I got like really into that because it was just like I thought about like every single bit of content that we like consume and get really invested in is a story in some sense, whether it be like the news, politics, like whatever it is, you get like really sucked in. So I was like, okay, maybe I should like learn a bit about that. But so like I had a performance who like helps teach a lot of the other people. I'll be honest with you guys, I have no idea where she learned it. Maybe it was just like innate. But yeah, I mean, in terms of learning resources, we get people to do courses, and I'll pay people if they do a course and they show me they've done it. Like if they read a book, again, I'll pay them, and like you can decide on like whatever bounty you want for your staff. I'm not going to give like recommendations on that. But yeah, I think a lot of these people didn't have they had a UGC background, interestingly. So I think we've got like three creative strats that had a UGC background. I had a media buying background, and then another guy we have has a media background. So I guess maybe from like the time working in like creator content, they've learned like storytelling, and they've been around scripting quite a bit. Whereas like I was never really like involved in that when I was just like clicking buttons. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so like they can especially on the creator side, like they also know what it's like to be a creator shooting this content. And so like they know how what should be scripted versus what should be vibes in the moment, and all that, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think that's what like everyone should get on there. I mean, obviously, I've said before that I think the best creative strats are from media buying background, but that's just completely biased because of where I came from. So, not sure if that's a hill I want to die on. But like, I think everyone in the creative team, like agencies, brands, like, they should look at like pulling people from different places because they're going to have different experiences and different ways to look at, script writing, creating ads, like whatever it is. And I think to Andrew's point, when like, maybe just like focused on results, maybe these other people want to do other stuff. Again, I don't know, but that was something that was like pretty important to me. It was just like, how can we have like diverse backgrounds coming into like creative strategy?
Yeah. So you're doing all this research up front, right? Which makes sense. And
Yeah,
it's
and
sounds
it's just
extremely deep.
done every day as well. Like I always just like keep telling me new stuff about the the market, the consumers, because like new stuff is happening to them every day as well. Like who knows what's changing? Like, um, and I think like a lot of agencies they'll go through like the 2 week like onboarding, and then that's just research done, right? They're just like cool, done it. But like no, I'm like no, we do this every day. So we're trying to work out like workflows to that. And then I guess other like researching stuff, if I wanted to like feel like I'm dropping some game, is Kalo data. All the drop shipping guys and gals will know about it, but like that's been a favorite of mine for a long time because you can just see all the TikTok shop affiliates on that, and you can learn how they're telling stories, new trends that are coming out there. Because like those guys are gonna, they're they're putting in work for their money. You know what I mean? They're slogging it day in day out making content. So if they're like popping off on there, like they're doing something well. So like there's a lot of formats that we've done where we've just like ripped off Kalo data and it's just like popped off. But you got to be quick as well because like obviously people start realizing that like you start seeing it in their like accounts. Like there's a deodorant brand like Carpe, whatever they're called. They're like really good at that. Like I saw some of their ads and I was like, oh yeah, you're just pulling from Kalo data. So you guys are definitely ripping.
Yeah, that's funny. It's like, I mean, everybody, there's most people on Twitter who say like affiliates are kind of like the OGs in general because you have to like build margin into, if you're not hitting your CPA, you have no margin. You just burned all your money. Like that is like the new version of that is literally TikTok Shop. Now the downside is your video didn't hit, and so maybe there's a little less skin in the game. But yeah, that's like if they want to eat next month, they gotta
Yeah,
make a
exactly,
banger.
man. Like, so I don't know why everyone's like trying to copy these like DTC darlings. I'm like, no, go look at these fucking guys who are slogging like 50 videos a day or something. Like,
Yeah,
they're the guys that you want to learn from.
it's so funny. I see Goalie Golly I think it's Goalie. They're like one of the
Oh
top
yeah,
TikTok
yeah.
shops. They're ripping, crazy volume and
Mhm.
tons of gnarly discounts. But like they're pretty big in retail as well. But it's like I'm sure they have much more than this. But like I always get the affiliate content that like kind of tells the same story. It's like somebody dumping something or some kind of ingredient that's like, but you take this, what like
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah,
and it's
yeah,
just
yeah,
like
yeah.
back and forth. But it's like all the they must have just like sent this to all their creators, like cool, do a different version of this, like use different things, like pound different colored sand, dump water in a different colored water or whatever. And ultimately, what it does is it makes it look like this is what's in you took all these things, that's what's in your body now. Why don't you just take this instead? It's just really interesting positioning. So,
Yeah, and
anyways,
they like do it
that's
with
my
like
affiliate.
they do it with like the money, and then they're like, oh, and it would cost you this much, but then you can do
Yes.
this. Yeah, 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 yeah. No, and that's why I saw like the deodorant brand. They like were copying like that. I even know when it was, but like I think back when we started the agency, and that one's been like going strong on TikTok Shop for a while. But I think what they do is they will just like rip each other. You know what I mean? Like as soon as they see one pop off, they then rip each other. And that was kind of like as well. Like I think Andrew said like innovation. I'd almost like push back and say like I don't innovate anything. I just like just steal all the stuff that I see is like working well around me. And I think maybe this is like a niche like UK reference, but a lot of people I do and like really this like broke the belief for me. It was like I was like start studying YouTubers again. And there's this like UK guy called KSI or whatever. I don't like, you know, he's like involved in assignment or whether it's like a UK thing, but I'm assuming you guys might know of him. But I don't like watch him, but I kept seeing like all this stuff pop up on my home feed, and it was just him ripping formats that other people had come up with, but just on like such a huge volume. I was like, oh yeah, he's not taking anything that hasn't already proven it's working. He's just like taking it all and then just like pushing it back out. You know what I mean? And like he's now getting like, you know, millions of views again. And I was just like, yeah, that's probably just like what you should
In
do.
those that are really successful, you know, Elon Musk didn't invent the electric car. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's so, and like those that are truly successful, it's many times like a rare exception of like Rolex roughly invented the wristwatch.
Mm.
But other than that, like that's one of the only exceptions in history I think of, like somebody that's truly a new brand new thing. A lot of times those that are successful, it's like they've iterated on an idea that exists and they've figured out how to make it popular, which is clearly what you're doing. I have a specific question about ad creatives, which is everybody talks about like the first 3 seconds.
Mhm.
How important is that to you, and what do you try to do in that period of time?
Yeah, I'd say it's like pretty important, right? Like not got anything like too controversial to say about that one. Like, yeah, no, it's super important. Yeah, I mean, with that, like a lot of times we're like, you know, really trying to like qualify people, you know, like really trying to show what the promise is. And like we kind of think about it in like three ways. Is like you've got a text hook, you've got a visual hook, you've got like an audio hook. I think people would be surprised how good a hook rate like visually can be, like just with like a person hold like just the person. They don't have to be like whether they're holding a product or just whatever random thing. Like I think you know, everyone's always trying to do this crazy visual stuff, which again, you should also do. But like, you know, just keeping it super simple. But like, yeah, oftentimes we're trying to like open a loop, like what the promise could be. And like, you know, with opening the loop, like giving people to keep watching, reason to keep watching. And then trying to like qualify people as well. Like sometimes we're like ladies over 50, da 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 da. You know, just because like we're not trying to talk to anyone else. So we're just like qualifying the audience that we want.
Can you give a this might be, I mean, you might have a ton of like library in your brain on the open loop stuff, but like I think I'm really fascinated by like the open loop concept. Can you give an example of like what that means, or just like dig into that for a couple more seconds? I'm just really fascinated by the open loop.
Yeah, so you've got to kind of like promise a payoff. And this is again, I like, you know, I keep saying promise, but like I think it's so important to like give a promise of a benefit, promise some kind of payoff. That just like you open it so someone goes like, well, I need a resolution to that. You know what I mean? So like I guess like that's the simplest way to explain an open loop is like you're promising some kind of payoff that someone's like, I need to find out the reason for this. Like there was like a hook that we had. I can't even remember what it was. That's really bad. I mean, my brain's gone blank. But it was something like, you know, if you're over this age, you should never do this or whatever. So we're like, there's like an information gap in there. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, okay, now I need to figure out why it is that I shouldn't do that. Clearly, I don't know something. So then I've got to like watch. But yeah, no, it was like, don't make the same mistake I did. And it had like a 73% hook rate or something. And it was like, then talking about this common thing that people do and like why you should actually never do it. So we explain the information gap and it's like getting people to that aha moment, which is like the proof. And then, yeah, that's kind of the way I look at it. I think people try and like overcomplicate it. Like you hear open loop and it sounds like this big, like maybe scary thing. I don't know. I definitely had this thing in my head where it took me a sec to get over it, like a couple of years ago. But it is just promising a payoff and giving, but you also do have to give that payoff. If you don't do that, people will be pretty pissed. You're gonna like, you're not gonna get purchases.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, like, I think what a lot of people do is talking. A lot of people say, "I need creative diversity," and I'm going to go into finding new personas based on research. And then I'm going to develop creatives that are speaking to those particular people, and the landing pages are going to match that whole thing, which I don't think is wrong.
No,
And I
no.
certainly think you also do that. I think the difference that you're doing is you're layering in whitelisting third party pages, which gives it a different level of credibility. It's not from the brand. You're layering in storytelling and true long format like hooks that are very dialed in to exactly what you're trying to get them across on, and talking about it, different issues, and you're hooking them with the story and the actual like, yeah, not just marketing, actually like a journey that you're taking them through of the different promises. And then I think you're figuring out other pain points as the time goes on that you can focus on and then hone in on and
Mhm.
like talk about those. And so it's not just the we need to launch an ad for socks to snowboarders now, and like we need to do snowboarding type shit. It's like, what are we going to talk about to them? What's a story that we're going to tell? That's a real difference, right? I think because there's been so much talk on consumer psychology that we all hear that's very much like, oh, this person, this is the way that you can angle with problems, or there's all these different levels that we go through, right? There's an episode that came out with Sarah Levinger, and she goes through a lot of those, and it's crazy. It like gets really overwhelming when you start to think about that. But in reality, I think so much of the core of it is like, what are you even telling these people? Like, what's so I think that's really interesting, Harry. And I think there's a reason that you've been successful because, yeah, you're building it in a different way.
Yeah, no, I actually listened to their episode. Like the episode was great. But I think with all those like, what do you call them? Like heuristics and stuff like that, like they're really good. But sometimes for me, I'm not as smart as Sarah, you know what I mean? So that's why I've got to keep it simple where I'm like, I promise, proof, and there's just no confusion. I'm not even smart enough to come up with another P for that. So it's just
I
like,
got the solution. I got it.
you
I've
got
been
it.
puzzling. Throw in puzzling and you're good. I know it's kind of
Promise
the opposite
puzzling.
though.
So
So
say the whole thing again, Brad.
promise, proof, puzzling. Which it's not like, is it puzzling would make more sense because like you don't want it to actually be puzzling, but we can workshop it a little bit more. But I think puzzling
Yeah.
might be the winner.
And
Nice.
connected puzzling.
There you go. There you
Nice.
go.
Nice. I'm with it. I'm with it. I'm a little bit confused now. So maybe like
Yeah.
puzzling. See, my brain can't. But no, I think that's the thing as well. Like, I think a lot of people, heuristics and stuff like that are great. And I try and use them as much as possible. But I also think sometimes they're maybe for slightly more, I don't know. No, yeah, I think they're for more advanced people. You know what I mean? Like, think about the heuristics, do that stuff. But when you actually have like a bit more of an understanding on the fundamentals of advertising and just like strip it back, where I feel like a lot of people are maybe trying to go from like here and then jump all the way over to here. And then maybe with like more AI and stuff like that, like they're kind of forgetting these parts here that maybe should be done manually. That like if you just put in that 10% extra effort, you're going to make some bangers. Like, the amount of times, again, going back to what's the difference between a 10,000 per day spend ad and a 500 at the start of that as well from creative, it's just the research. Like if you actually go back and look at that and be like, is that a desire that my audience gives a shit about? You're probably going to go, no, maybe not. Is it like the messaging with the image? Say if you're doing static, is it congruent? Is it like pointing to that desire? Is there enough proof? And you're probably going to go, nah, I don't know if there is. Do you know what I mean? Or am I using the words that my audience uses? No, maybe not. Like, Claude's just kind of like spat out something that it like, because the amount of times as well, you'll get Claude to write something from like a review and then you ask it, is this verbatim? It goes, oh no, sorry, you're right. It's not. Like, even if you tell it to do verbatim, it's insane. So I think it goes back to that. And like a lot of people try and jump to this other stuff. When you just focus on the fundamentals, you're going to win because I don't know if everyone's forgetting them or I don't want to, no, because that sounds like I'm calling people out. I'm like, not. But I think we're such a young agency to be kind of coming into these accounts and competing like we are. It only comes down to the fundamentals. That's just all we do is the basics and do it as much as possible.
Yeah. Well, it has to be more complicated or there's no way it work, right? It's like I think that's the assumption that people make is if it's not complicated, maybe that's easy. But like what you're saying is fundamentals don't equate to easy necessarily.
No. Yeah, it's tough because you got to put in more effort. You know what I mean? Like you've got to find that story. Maybe you've scrolled past the fourth story and you're like, maybe that one will do. It's like, no, you got to keep scrolling. You got to find that one that really hits home where you're like, oh no, that's definitely a story. I know that for a fact that people are having that in their day-to-day life. So as soon as I start telling that, you're just plugging straight in.
Yeah. So that kind of segues decently into like some formats. Just curious, like, okay, so are there any formats recently that you can just like free games? You mentioned yappers. You said AI slop, but I think AI slop can be. I mean, I
Covers
know what you
so
mean, but it can,
yeah.
it can cover so many different things. It's claymation, it's Pixar, it's
Yeah.
not any of those, anything in between. But like any other formats recently that people can latch onto.
Yeah. So yappers for sure. Um, Founders stuff. We love a bit of founder stuff. Claymation, um, Pixar, like the skeleton stuff as well. I don't know if you've seen that. That's crushed. Like native statics again. And if anyone's not sure what I mean by that, it's just like some kind of like image that looks like it could been, it doesn't look not meant to look like an ad. Like, sometimes they'll do it with like nurses and stuff, or just that's probably like don't know why that example's in my head. Or like if you're doing dog supplements, it could just be a picture of a dog looking sad or whatever, and then it's just like really long primary text copy. But usually that's involving some kind of story as well. This like long form, it goes through. So that one I like a lot. I was dunking on them, but sometimes I do look like a little 3 reasons why ad. It can work. It can work.
Well, it's like people take formats and they try to slop to your point. It's like they try to say, okay, here's the script, Claude, make it for my product, and it's like that's the bad slapped version of just like they're trying to use the format because somebody said the format was what was mattered, but it's like the format plus the messaging plus understanding the person is really like it's all of it.
Exactly, and we don't apply every format to every client because sometimes it just doesn't make sense. It's like for some that like the Yapper just works so much better at, then it's like, okay, then we can just do that. But then if it's like a claymation and we're doing it with pets, you can make the fucking dog talk. You know what I mean? Like you can't do that with a Yapper one. You know what I mean? So you can like, and people want to know what their dogs are saying, so they feel that kind of thing. Like, oh wow, do you know what I mean? So it's like it makes sense for different clients as well. But I think people see that and they're like, okay, I've got to like shoehorn this into that, and it just doesn't really make sense. And you kind of see a bit like, oof. Like, I guess a good example of it would be podcast ads. The amount of brutal ones I've seen of those is because everyone was like, "Oh, this is a great format. I need to do it." But it's like, no, it's tough to do. I mean, I've never tried to do one, but I imagine it's tough to do. Um, and like, it takes effort. And like, does it work for every product? Does it make sense for every product? It's like, no, everyone just did it because it was the hot thing at that point.
This stuff is like so much it's built on volume, and the focus has been on volume, right? In terms of like AI can help you build better systems that do all these 25 things that create 300 ads, and I think what you're like the anti of that, to a degree. Like you're slowing it down, you're trying different formats certainly, but you're also like, okay, let's just like look at this objectively. Like, is this 3 reasons why isn't necessarily bad, but like it would be 3 reasons why in the context of other stuff. Like it's in
Yeah.
the context of a story. It's in the context of, and I think that's a real difference. Like I wonder what the average character count is of an ad on a highly successful ad on a successful D2C company. It's got, let's say that it's 200 words
Hmm.
roughly, right? Let's say that's what like most of these are going to be 100 to 300 words. The stuff that you showed in Lisbon, Harry, like those ads were easily 1,500 to 2,000 characters, like, or words, like they were long, and it's like a whole thing. And so I think that is a real difference. So it's like, it's not just one style of format, and we all want that answer, right? We all want like the answer that's going to make it easy to be like, oh, you take this format, it creates that ad and boom, it pumps it out. And I think you have to have that in an account as well. But if you want to truly see growth, there has to be like a real storytelling piece that slows it down. And I think slowing down is something that's really hard for a lot of people, including myself. So I think that's a really interesting way to kind of go about thinking about
I think that's why I like to force the manual stuff because that forces people to slow down. You know what I mean? Like maybe you still feel like you're going fast because you got a lot of stuff going on, but it makes you slow down on the product, the market, because you have to be like sit with it and like actually sit going through these things reading this stuff, instead of just having like AI summarize it all for you and just being like, it's probably going to miss some like nuggets. Maybe it has, maybe it hasn't. You know what I mean? Like, because I'm always testing AI as well. Like, it sounds like I'm dunking on AI, but like a lot of the stuff I do, like I'm trying like new flows and stuff like that. And like was playing with Reddit scrapers and stuff. But when I went back and checked the sources, I was like, wait, you've just missed stories out of this and maybe taken like a couple of words that you thought would be good and helpful. And like, yeah, sure they were, but like this story would have been great. And like, I was even telling it to like pull me the longest stuff and like whatever. But I think just by getting people to do more manual, you are just making them slow down and be a lot more intentful with their ads. I also wouldn't say I'm necessarily anti volume, because I think if you can do a good thing, you should do it as much as possible. But it never made sense to me when people were like peddling it like a year ago. And like, funnily, they've all made a big U-turn on that as well. Everyone that was like volume has backpedaled. But it just makes, I don't know. I see brands being like, this is the most upset they've been maybe with like agency performance. I don't know. Like everyone I speak to seems to have like be upset by it. And like, this has come just after there's been mass adoption of AI and also everyone's spouting volume. And it seems like creative agencies are just like churned and burned through like all the time. Like every time I talk to a brand and they're like, oh, just like creative like agencies can't get any hits or whatever. And I'm just like, I don't know, maybe it's coincidental, maybe it's not, but it seems, I don't know, it seems fishy to me.
I feel like you just nailed the whole entire beef section on your own. So I don't even know if we need to go with any more beefs, Andrew, unless you got something you want to be mad about. But no, this is great.
I mean, I think that, I don't think it's beefs. I think the challenge is we all are right now, the ecosystem is built on people putting out information that makes people feel left out and makes them, and it has been for a while, but it makes them feel like they're behind. And it's based on a volume, really, of like, I'm doing all these things that are solving all these issues and I'm saving all this time and all this money, hypothetically. Right. But I think Harry going out with the message he's gone out with, one is you have leads coming into your inbox or flooding your inbox in some instances because because you're doing something different and you're slowing down, which is really challenging for people in the AI age to do. I think the other thing to point out is like many times the answer is stopping and looking at this objectively and saying like, what are we trying to actually storytell here and how? That's really an interesting takeaway from this episode that I think a lot of people can take something from, because we get away from that so often. And so that's kind of my beef is like, slow down, it's okay, and it's just because this stuff's being yelled other places doesn't mean that it's actually more successful.
Yeah. Well, and like the amount of times I talk to a brand and they're like, oh, they just feel like they didn't really understand my audience. Like the amount of times I've heard that this year is like insane. And it's literally like, come on, that's our job as advertisers. It's like, we gotta, gotta know, if we don't know the audience, what are we doing? You know what I mean? Like, it seems like basics again, but like the amount of times I've heard that this year has been kind of like just mental. And I feel like if people just did manual research, they would solve all those issues. Like, I have no crazy flow to sell you or to like, I'm just like, no, just go read through it and you'll be fine. You'll be able to make ads that like crush, you know what I mean? And yeah, I mean, like, what you said on kind of like stuff being pumped out on, oh, you're missing out. Like after that paid partnership stuff, like, like I see stuff and it's like, oh, this industry is now finished. Oh, UGC is, or like whatever it is, like cooked. And now, like before, you never saw the paid partnership stuff, and now you see it like the parts like paid partnership. I was like, oh yeah, you guys was being paid to say that the whole time. It didn't have to disclose it. I think there's quite a few.
It's a whole other thing. I mean, we're trying to build our partnerships program right now transparently in a better way, and I'm really conscious around how we want to do that, right? And the people that we're like working with and making sure it makes sense, because I think that's so true. I mean, you only have your word, right? And like I get DMs all the time. It's like, will you do this for $400? And like, my word is not worth $400. It's priceless. You know what I mean? Like, I've got to be able to have people come to me saying, I use this all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
it's
never taken a
yeah.
paid partnership yet. Not yet.
Except from Foxwell, I'll send you the money after this, Harry.
Yeah, no, thank you. And folks are standards.
Yeah.
I forgot that part.
Uh, yeah. Harry, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it.
No, good. Hopefully people found that valuable. you know, a little bit late in the evening for me. So it might have been a whole lot of nonsense, but thank you for having me.
This episode is brought to you by the Foxwell Founders membership that Andrew and his wife Gracie run. It has been absolutely pivotal for not just the Homestead team, but the Easy Street Brands team. We've had, I don't even know how many members are currently in there that are part of our ecosystem. But when it comes to anything from learning ads to understanding what's going on to building an agency to knowing retention, it's been absolutely useful for our team when they get stuck or they need help to just go there and resource all the other experts. So definitely would recommend it for anybody that's looking to, you know, take it a step deeper, try to get a little bit more knowledge on growth marketing and all the world D2C is.
Yeah, I think one of the most incredible things about it is you can just like open up the Slack group every single day. You can pin your favorite channels for the topics you care most about. And like every day there's going to be somebody who just like, because they want to contribute something valuable to the group, you can go learn something every single day and it's going to be extremely useful. There's some ballers in there that you just get like the benefit of learning from that. Like for the cost, like you couldn't pay them that for their time, but through the membership, like you get access to some incredible people and tons of resources.
I mean, I think the biggest resource to me too is like the events that, you know, Foxwell Founders does. They've been able to do some, even in Wisconsin, even in the boring state of Wisconsin, which is pretty awesome, getting people together in person and able to have really just like honest conversations of what's going on, what's working for them now, you know, where they're at in their business, and knowing that there's going to be, like Brad said, some real killers in the space in this membership that can help and are willing to take the time and help. So that's been a huge part of why a lot of our team have really enjoyed it as well.
And applications are now open if you're looking to join. So
Foxwell Founders, foxwellfounders.com. Go check it out. Go apply.
The only way that we grow this podcast is by you sharing it with your friends. Honestly, like reviews kind of don't really mean anything too much anymore. They're really meaningful, but they don't do a lot for the growth of the podcast. And so sharing YouTube links, sharing Spotify links, sharing Apple, whatever we call it under the podcast app now, anything you can share, the better we're going to be. Guys, anything else you want to say on this?
Yeah, please go check us out on YouTube. Rack up those views for us. We'd love to see it. And then subscribe. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube as well.
And I relentlessly refresh the YouTube comments because it dictates my mental health for the day. So please say something nice about all of us.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for listening, honestly.